Hello everyone, welcome to today's battle report. It's been a while since I've posted a battle report. I haven't had very many games recently, well, none that I've been able to complete anyway. So this is a 4,500 point game of Saurian Ancients with my good friend Silas. He's on the Saurian Ancients, I'm on the Orcs and Goblins. Two very strong lists in this game, so it'll make a good battle report, this one. So I will pop the lists up and you can pause and take a look if you would like to, and then we will get straight into deployment. Okay, so here we are in deployment then. The deployment type was the refused flank, and the secondary objective is secure the targets. So let's just talk you through the units. We'll start with Silas's, I think. We've got a skink captain here, and then a giant with a salamander. A unit of Saurian warriors with a skink priest. 2 units of hunters. This is a Saurian veteran on a Carnosaur, and then he's got his Mystic Traveller Stygiosaur. Another shaman here in a unit of skinks, and then 2 snake swarms. Big unit of skinks with some caimans, unit of weapon beasts, salamanders, captain on Taurosaur BSB, and 2 units of Rampadon riders. On my side, we've got 2 orc boar chariots, a splatterer, a goblin king on a gargantula, unit of iron orcs, a unit of raiders, spiders, spider riding version, Great Green Idol BSB, unit of goblins with a goblin shaman in there, and then unit of feral orcs with feral orc shaman, and another unit of feral orcs and a splatter over here. I also deployed one of my units of raiders as a unit of scouts. So that is deployment. Silas has got the first turn, so let's get into his movement. Okay, so a quick look at vanguards then before we get into the game. So you can see both of Silas's Rampadon riders are coming towards my raiders down here, who themselves have vanguarded towards the salamanders. The salamanders are going to be a key element to the game. So if I can get rid of them early, that's going to go in my favour, and if Silas can protect them, then of course in his. And then the other unit of raiders just vanguarding up here. Now, Silas would get the first turn. He had deployed in order to get the first turn, so that's your vanguards done. Let's get straight into Silas's movement 1. Okay, on to Silas's movement 1 here then, and there are 4 things really that sort of characterise Silas's movement 1. First, that you've got the convergence of shooting down here on the raiders. I don't think this is the way I would have played this. I think there are easier ways to take out 5 raiders than converge this much shooting on them, because of course it means the salamanders are not doing their job, which is to scorch these big blocks, and it also means the Taurosaur is not doing its job either, which is to get into flanking position against these blocks as well. So that's the first thing anyway. The second thing I would say is that a lot of these units around here are sort of hovering around, remaining fairly stationary. Then third point, you've got the hunters and the snake swarm kind of moving up through the middle. And then fourth and finally, you've got the veteran and the giant, and also the skink captain sort of using the hill as cover against the splatterers. So that pretty much encapsulates Silas's movement 1. Okay, end of Silas's turn 1 here then. So in the magic phase, he got Break the Spirit off on this unit here. And it was a choice between stopping this and stopping the Totemic Beast. But I don't want a Totemic Beast popping up too soon and going after my mage bunker over here, or taking out one of my catapults. So I decided to dispel Totemic Beast, knowing that he would get Break the Spirit off, but I can get around that by simply moving rather than marching, and therefore not having to take a dangerous terrain test. The Rampadons and the Taurosaur and the Salamanders between them managed to kill 4 of the raiders here. Silas made a bit of a mistake in targeting the units before with his conventional shooting before using the salamanders, which meant that there were not very many models for him to get hits with. So there was that, and one survived and passed its panic test as well, which was nice. But then over here, the raiders on this side were completely obliterated by skink shooting. So that was that. And that was all of Silas's turn one. Oh, other than to say he took a wound with one of his salamanders over here because he rolled a 1 for one of his shots anyway. So that was Silas's turn 1. Okay, on to my movement 1 here then. And there have been no charges, it's really just a sort of a general advance across the board, getting the witch doctor over here away from the board edge, bringing the raider down here into the corner, forcing one of his units to stay behind and sort it out, just to really sort of put so much distance between the unit and the game that it's going to take it out for a couple of turns really, because he's got to go after this raider just for the nuisance value of it really. And then, yeah, just as I say, an advance across the middle of the board, going around the house one way or another as well. And that was the end of my movement 1. Okay, end of my turn 1 here then. I've got 1 spell off in the magic phase. That's Chilling Howl on the giant over here. I don't want him sort of popping out and getting too much of a good salamandery shooting phase, perhaps on my Iron Orcs, for example. So a bit of Chilling Howl just to limit the effectiveness of his shooting. And then my Gargantula, who advanced rather than marched, took out a single skink with its onboard goblin crew with their bows. Both of my splatterers missed, so a very depressing turn 1 where we killed a single skink. And that was the end of my turn 1. Okay, into Silas's movement 2 here then, and you can see that the salamanders and the pterosaur and one of the unit of rampedons are now kind of heading in the direction that they should have been, and he has quite rightly elected to charge just with 1 unit of rampedons and finish this raider off down here. Skink Captain on the hill here, obviously getting ready for some chaffing action later. Unit of hunters here, chaffing up the Gargantula. Snake Swarm here, chaffing up the Iron Orcs, and running a unit of hunters out up here as well. That's the end of Silas's movement 2. Okay, end of Silas's turn 2 here then. So he quite rightly has realised that I can't tolerate a totemic beast being just up here just yet. So I've dispelled that, and then he's put Break the Spirit on my unit of Iron Orcs with the Snake Swarm in front of them. This is really good play, because I will have to take 2 dangerous terrains if I charge while this spell is on me, and then another dangerous terrain for the Snake Swarm. So I take dangerous terrain 3, which would effectively kill half of my Iron Orc unit. So he's pinned that unit absolutely in place. So that's really good play on Silas's part. Other than that, a couple of wounds on the chariot over here from the skink hunters that you can see just there, and the rampedons killed the raider down here and have reformed, ready to sort of head up in this direction. Whether they will have enough time to be brought to bear or not, maybe. They've got a good march range on them, but they've also got a significant distance to cover. So that's that. Yeah, that's the end of Silas's turn 2. Okay, on to my movement 2 here then. And the most interesting part of the movement 2 has been with this unit of feral orcs here who charged at the skink hunters who fled. And because they fled, I was able to redirect into the Stygiosaur, who was sort of about here. Silas decided he didn't want this unit kind of running down his flank here, and that makes lots of sense. So he fled, but in so doing, because of the position of the giant and the veteran on Carnosaur, the Stygiosaur sort of went through several units and ended up here, and then of course I was able to charge it with this chariot down this line here, so the Stygiosaurus ran off the board there. So a couple of failed charges as a consequence of that, but I'm perfectly happy with the death of the Stygiosaur. I think if I'd have been Silas, to be honest, I'd have just tolerated the loss of the hunters and the potential overrun of this feral orc unit, because I think the loss of the Stygiosaur is a bit of a waste, to be honest. Other than that, charge here on the chaff with the skink hunters there. Charge here with the chariot on the skink captain. I don't want the skink captain chaffing me up later, so I figure if I overrun a good distance, then I might run into this unit. This would be a 10-inch overrun, but I am a swift strider. And if I don't go very far, then I can sort of end up somewhere over here and maybe flee and leave whatever elected to charge me kind of standing on the hill ready to be pounced on by the spider is what I'm thinking. So that's what's going on over there. Can't charge this unit, got to stand there and stare at the snake swarm, which is very annoying. But there's not a lot I can do about that. And then just moving to advance on Silas's sort of wider army over here, and going to have to face the brunt of these salamanders, I'm afraid. Not a lot that can be done about that though. And then bringing the Great Green Idol and the goblins, heading this way with the goblins, away from this board edge, away from any totemic beasts. What I'm wanting to do is get my scoring units up in the front of Silas and have these goblins kind of come around here and hold this scoring, this secondary objective later on. So that's why they're heading this way. So that's the end of my movement 2. Okay, on to my turn 2 here then. So I got 2 wounds on the giant with a swarm of insects in the magic phase, and then I cast a totemic beast, big version, although I only used 4 dice, but I got a miscast with a 666. So that ended up inflicting 2 wounds on my general, so that was a bit of an unfortunate surprise. I've got a very tender general now. I attempted a chilling howl. You can see the marker there. It shouldn't actually be there because Silas dispelled that, but I did get pyroclastic flow off on the snake swarm, hoping to panic it, which was very silly because it's unbreakable. So Silas quite rightly let that one through, because it doesn't matter really whether there's 1 snake swarm or 2, so that was a waste of some dice really. One of the splatterers, this one here, just about can see the corner of this giant here, so that got a wound off on the giant there as well. The gargantula killed the hunters, as you would expect, and the chariot did manage to overrun the 10 inches, which brought it into contact with this big unit here. Of course, I don't expect it to be able to do anything, but with only 2 wounds left, its death is going to achieve, putting a sizable dent in this unit, I hope. And that was the end of my turn 2. Okay, on to Silas's movement 3 here then. So there have been no charges in Silas's movement 3, and his Carnosaur riding Saurian veteran has elected to go and cower behind the Saurian warriors rather than face up to the Gargantula and Forest Goblin King. This, of course, led to many chicken noises and general taunting being sent in Silas's direction. Other than that, Rampedon riders here plopping down in front of the feral orcs, which of course means that the salamanders get more time to shoot at them. Pterosaur shooting being brought over here to sort out the totemic beast. So we've got that whole kind of, can I take out the salamanders, can Silas protect them thing still going on over here. Backing off with his skinks and caimans here, so that if I do come after them, I'll lose steadfast because I'll be in the forest. And that's pretty much it, really. Shuffling around with the giant a little bit here to make sure that I can't get an extra shot from him, a bit of a sidestep maneuver. I'm not sure about this. I feel like the giant isn't really achieving anything by hiding behind the hill. But at the same time, I understand why he's hiding behind the hill, because there's lots of scary over here. And I think this is a consequence, actually, of deployment, because with Silas putting his whole army down first, yeah, he got the first turn, but I was able to put the units that I wanted to hunt down the things that I wanted them to hunt down. I wanted my Iron Orcs and my Gargantula on the same side as the Giant and the Carnosaur, and I was able to get that because of of Silas's early deployment. So, yeah, that's that. Anyway, that's the end of Silas's movement 3. Okay, we are at the end of Silas's turn 3 here. I should also make mention that the Taurosaur only moved to where he did here because the Rampedon riders actually failed a charge, which was shocking, actually, because it was only a 4-inch charge that they needed to make, and they have Swift Stride as well, and Silas rolled a 1, 1 and a 2. So that was very unlucky for him. Right, anyway, Magic Phase, so he did get a Totemic Beast. I'm happy to, well, I'm not happy to tolerate it, but I think it's now more tolerable than another Break the Spirit on my Iron Orcs combined with this Snake Swarm. So I've accepted that will be there because I plan to charge this unit through here and put some distance over here. So that's what's going on there. So Silas got a Totemic Summon off in his Magic Phase, and then the Rampedon, sorry, not the Rampedon riders, the Taurosaur and the Giant Blowpipes and its crew between them did 2 wounds on the Totemic Beast. Not enough to kill it, but it is down to 1 wound. Rampedon's up here, there we go, 1 wound on the Feral Orcs. Salamanders did 8 wounds on the Feral Orcs, and then this Totemic Beast did a breath weapon and killed 4 goblins over here. In combat, the Chariot actually won. You can see it's put a sizable dent in this unit, but of course the Saurian warriors were steadfast, and next turn it will get a good pounding because it doesn't have its impact hits this next time round. And that was the end of Silas's turn 3. Okay, on to my movement 3 here then. So there have been a few charges in this turn. The Iron Orcs here charging the Snake Swarm, of course. The Chariot here declared a charge on the Saurian Warriors, only needing an 8, a Swift Striding 8, but didn't make it, so failed charge there. Charging at the Rampedons here, got to get rid of that chaffing effect. And I've gone in with, it's not a charge, it's technically a random move, but gone in with the beast in the hope of doing some damage to these salamanders over here. And then apart from that, turning the Great Green Idol around over here to stare down the Totemic Beast, so that if it does take a chance at coming this way, it's 50-50 whether he'd make it on a 3d6 random move here, but either way the Totemic Beast will be able to come in and sort of rescue the goblins or finish off the Totemic Beast if he does come this way. Which of course means that the far more sensible move for Silas later will be to go for the Splatterer. Other than that, Spider up on the hill here, able to see everything, Swift Striding, rerollable charge. I'm satisfied that puts him in a good place. The gap here, not a great one for the giant to kind of move through later on. If he does want to take a salamander shot down here, I'm not sure. Anyway, I decided to just be full frontal offensive, as orcs and goblin players generally should be, I think. Right, that's the end of my movement 3. Okay, on to the end of my turn 3 here then. So in the Magic Phase, I managed to get off a Scorching Salvo, doing 1 wound to the giant, and then a Blaze as the aspect doing a 2nd wound to the giant, and that was it for the Magic Phase, with otherwise failed casting attempts and some successful dispelling. In the Shooting Phase, one of my Splatterers did 2 wounds to the Taurosaur, and then in combat the Saurian warriors saw off the Chariot. The Iron Orcs have finished off the Snake Swarm, so a clear path there now, and the Salamanders over here finished off the Wounded Beast. I think it's worth mentioning some really good play on Silas's part over here. I had to charge these Rampedons because if I didn't, then my Feral Orcs just stand there and slowly get scorched. But because I did, I've now got myself into a position where Silas, as long as he passes a March test, which he should do, because his General has got an 18-inch range and his BSB's got an 18-inch range, as long as he passes a March test, he can now get out of my arc of vision and just breathe fire on me. And there's very little I can do about that. So really good link-up play between the Salamanders and the Rampedon riders over here, I think. Anyway, there you go. That is the end of my turn 3. Okay, on to Silas's movement 4 then, and there's been just the one charge in this turn, and that was with the Saurian warriors here against the chariots. Now I've elected to flee because I figure that I can get into my BSB's 18-inch range here, which I have done, rally, and then the distance will favour me for a counter charge later on. A turn rallying, of course, and then a subsequent charge. It also means that the unit boundary of this unit is visible to my Gargantula, so I'll be able to get a flank charge on this unit potentially later. Other than that, Silas has made a dash towards the to the catapult, the splatterer over here, but he's actually missed it by 1 inch, which is unfortunate. Giant has come out here to breathe some fire on the orcs here. That's quite a dangerous position for him to be in, really. But I think this is sort of his last-ditch attempt at value, really. Skinks chaffing, Salamanders ready to pound on this unit, similarly with shooting from the Pterosaurs and the Rampadon riders, and then a cautious move backwards with the Skinks and the Priest here, and the big Cayman unit, and the big chicken veteran on his Carnosaur, bravely cowering in the corner. That is the end of Silas's movement 4. Okay, on to the end of Silas's turn 4 here then, and in the magic phase he's actually miscast Break the Spirit with a 666, killing his own Skink Priest, which is both kind of good and bad news, really. It actually changes the unit boundary of this unit here, meaning that the Gargantula can no longer see this unit, so it does sort of spare these Saurian warriors somewhat, but of course it's never a good thing to lose your Shamanism caster, so that was unfortunate for him, really. Salamanders up here inflicted a wound on themselves, rolling a 1, but then the other Salamander killed 6, so a poorish performance from that unit there. But then the Giant, with its Salamander, did 6 wounds to this unit here. Skinks and the Rampadon riders each did 2 wounds on these units between them as well. And that was the end of Silas's turn 4. It's really becoming a question in this game of, can these 2 units now get into combat and sort of tighten the grip around the bulk of the army over here before the combined Salamanders and shooting can sort of diminish them to a point where they're no longer effective. It's a bit of a race, really, I suppose. Anyway, that's the end of Silas's turn 4. Okay, on to the end of my movement 4 here then, and there have been a few charges in my movement 4. I've charged the Feral Orcs at the Rampadons here, mainly to get out of the arc of vision of the Pterosaur, really, because I don't fancy being flank charged by a Pterosaur. Charged the Giant with the Iron Orcs. He has, of course, fled, but that's going to bring him into the path of the Feral Orcs, who should smash through the Skinks and overrun and kill him. And then the Gargantula has run down the hill, so, of course, re-rollable swift striding here onto this Skink unit that couldn't really flee because it would have potentially quite easily have ended up running through his general and therefore off the board. So that was that. The Chariot has also rallied over here, and the distance game should work for me here now. And the Goblins coming around the corner here so that the Iron Orcs can advance and the Goblins can hold the secondary objective, which is just underneath the Iron Orcs right now. And that's the end of my movement 4. And on to the end of my turn 4 here then. I should have mentioned in the previous clip that the Iron Orcs actually took 9 wounds from dangerous terrain due to Break the Spirit, but I figured it was worth it for the death of the Giant. So in my turn then, I got Awaken the Beast off on this unit of Feral Orcs here, just trying to make them a bit tougher so that if Silas decides to come breathing his fire on them, then they're a bit more durable against it. In the shooting phase, the Splatterer did 1 wound on the Pterosaur before it gets munched by the Totemic Beast. The Orcs beat the Rampadons, but 1 Rampadon survived and they weren't able to catch it. So that's what's going on down here. And then the orcs beat the hunters and overran into the giant, killing the giant. And then I reformed. I believe that's legal. I couldn't find anything in the book that told me that it wasn't legal. But if you know otherwise, then do please say so. And then the Gargantula over here won combat against the Skinks. I didn't use my Dragon Staff breath weapon here. I was hoping to just kill one more skink with my Thunder Stomps, and I rolled a 3 on my Thunder Stomp, and I thought, well, that should do it. 3 dice. Any one of them that's a 2+ will do it. Of course, I rolled a triple 1, and so the skinks were therefore steadfast. So that was frustrating in the extreme. But anyway, so that's what's going on there. And then we reformed, and I've reformed to ensure that the Carnosaur can't get a charge in there. And that was the end of my turn 4. Okay, on to Silas's move 5 here then. And Silas has declared just one charge with his skinks and caimans against the feral orc unit. And he's actually failed that charge, even though he only needed a 5 on 2 dice. But I think that's actually of benefit to him, really, because if he'd have charged and made it, he would have had the majority of his models in the forest, and therefore would not have been steadfast. And I don't really see this unit beating the feral orcs. Okay, they've got 3 caimans who are strength 6, fine, and that's scary. But the feral orcs are hitting the skinks on 2s and 3s and wounding them on 2s. So I think he's actually kind of got lucky in failing the charge there, really, because now I'm going to have to charge him, and then he will be steadfast, and I won't be able to benefit from my ranks. So yeah, anyway, that's what happened in the movement phase. He also rallied his Rampadon over here, and he's tried to position the Carnosaur here so that I can't charge the Rampadon, although you'll see later why that doesn't work. Salamanders and the Taurosaur are along the side here. Salamanders, of course, trying to breathe down this flank here, and then the Taurosaur hoping to kind of finish off any mess afterwards. That's Silas's movement 5. Okay, Silas's turn 5 here then, and he got the Oaken thrown off in the magic phase, but that doesn't really change very much. Salamanders did a good number on the feral orcs though, killing 8. The Taurosaur also poisoned and killed 1. In the combat phase, the Gargantula finished off the Skinks and Priest, as you would expect, and the Beast up here killed off a Splatterer. And that was the end of Silas's turn 5. Okay, on to my movement 5 then. So we'll start down here with the charge against the Rampadon, and I've been able to wheel in order to connect with the corner of the Rampadon, and then so that I don't run into the Carnosaur, the Rampadon has had to close the door on me. And of course what that means is that when I overrun or chase the Rampadon, I'm going to go straight forwards and then connect with the flank of the Carnosaur here. So that was a bit of a positioning conundrum for Silas, really. Over here, I've charged at this skink unit. If I stand still, I just get breath weaponed to death, so safer in combat. Question really is, can I do enough damage to this unit? Because with the depletion from the Salamanders, I've got less attacks than I would like. Still lots of attacks, about 19 or 20 attacks in here, something like that. But a lot of skinks to get through. As well. I didn't charge with the Gargantula, who was sort of over here, because I anticipated that Silas would flee, sort of end up over here in his BSB and general range, and then I wouldn't be able to get the points for the unit. So I charged with the feral orcs and then moved the Gargantula around the side, closing down this unit of Saurian warriors over here as well, and then the goblins onto position for the secondary objective and within magical range of some targets over here. And that's the end of my movement 5. Okay, end of my turn 5 here then. So in the magic phase, I managed to get off a fireball and the aspect blaze, and with that I killed off a salamander. It was a fairly lame magic phase. Combat, the skinks and the caimans held. You can see I've put a sizable dent in them, but it wasn't enough to break their steadfast, which of course now means that this unit is going to get flanked, with my general in it, is going to get flank charged by a pterosaur, but there's not very much that I can do about that. The orcs smashed through the rampadon, surged forward, and have gone into the side of Silas's general. So although my own is going to die, I'm going to be able to inflict substantial harm on him, I hope, here in his turn, and then perhaps finish him off with the gargantula in mine, being the idea. So that was the end of my turn 5. Okay, on to Silas's turn 6 here then. Movement 6 rather. So you can see he's charged in with the pterosaur here, and then that's going to hurt. He's also declared a charge with the Saurian warriors over here on the chariot, and this I think is a really smart play. He needs an 8 on 2d6, so he's unlikely to get it, but if he does, then he can beat the chariot, overrun, end up over here out of the arc of vision, and therefore save his unit and waste the time of these units here potentially. But anyway, he failed that charge, so his Saurian warriors are in quite a bit of trouble there really. Salamander just moving up here just to do some damage to the iron orcs, of course, and that's Silas's movement 6. Okay, end of Silas's turn 6 here then. There was no magic phase because the wizards are dead, but you can see that the skinks and the caimans and the pterosaur between them, mostly the pterosaur to be fair, finished off the feral orcs and the giant. The pterosaur actually overran 10 inches, pursued my general 10 inches, which does put it dangerously close to the iron orcs here actually. But anyway, so a good solid victory in the middle there. Silas drew the combat here with the feral orcs, and he forgot to use his egg, his breath weapon egg, which could have actually finished the unit off. To be fair, I only realised that after the game though, so apologies for not reminding you there, Silas. And then he did 4 wounds on the iron orcs with his salamander in the shooting phase, and that is the end of Silas's turn 6. Okay, on to my movement 6 here then, and you can see up in the corner here I have used my war cry, and that's going to make my iron orcs swift striding, and then in the charge phase I have been able to charge the pterosaur on the flank there. I've also got into these Saurian warriors here with the chariot and the great green idol, so it's looking pretty grim in both of these places here for Silas, and then the Goblin King on Gargantula getting into the flank of the Carnosaur veteran here, who only has 1 wound left as well. So this is, from my point of view, is what it's all sort of been building to. I've been slowly kind of tightening the noose, and we've reached the crunch point now, I think. So that's my movement 6. Okay, so end of my turn 6 here then, and I got flaming swords off on the iron orcs in the final turn, making them +1 to wound, and they were attacking the pterosaur with strength 5 and great weapons, so they were effectively strength 8. I was wounding a pterosaur on 2s, which is outrageous really. So anyway, the pterosaur would succumb to the iron orcs, although they would be decimated in the process. The gargantula would finish off the veteran, and the Great Green Idol and the Boar Chariot would finish off the Saurian warriors. So the difference at the end of the game was 1,877 points, which is a 15-5 in my favour. And then the secondary objectives here made it an 18-2, which is pretty brutal really. A couple of thoughts at the end of the game. I think first of all this was quite a bad matchup for Silas. A lot of his army depends on having parry, and all of my big blocks have paired weapons. So he was always going to struggle in combat. As well as that, I also think that there's not a great amount of durability in terms of holding on to secondary objectives in his list. I mean, he's really got 3 blocks. He's got a block with 15 Saurian warriors. That's probably his best chance of holding a block, of holding an objective, but the unit is just too small. Then he's got his Skinks and Caimans. That's a really underrated unit against most things. Struggled with the paired weapons of the Feral Orcs, but how durable is it with so many Resilience 2 models? And then he's got a block of Skinks. That, of course, gives him lots of points spent in manoeuvrable units, so he can play this delaying game as he did today. But the secondary objectives are so important. A 3-point swing is massive. So there's that. I also think that the deployment phase, Silas put his whole army down, and that enabled me to pick my matchups, and that played to my favour. I think the patience there and accepting that I was going to be going second worked in my favour. I don't think I made a lot of mistakes in this game. That sounds quite, it feels quite arrogant to say that, but I think that I perhaps didn't deploy my Goblin Witch Doctor very well. I should have had him go after the Salamanders, but then at the same time his unit did secure the secondary objective, so he couldn't be in two places at once, I suppose. I didn't see the Snake Swarm break the Spirit combo, and that enabled Silas to limit the effectiveness of my Iron Orcs. It was really good play on his part, but even if I'd have seen it, I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it because I had to stop the Totemic Summon. I failed to use my Dragon Staff, but I think that the key kind of point in the game really is Silas's very effective defense of his Salamanders. If he had not have gone after my Raiders in the first turn with the Salamanders, he'd have got 2 more turns of shooting. His turn 1 and then his turn 2 where he was busy manoeuvring back into position. And I think that could have made a massive difference to the outcome of the game, to be honest. So I think 18-2 is a bit lucky, really, if I'm completely honest. Anyway, that is the end of the battle report. Well done for making it all the way to the end, everyone. Yeah, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.